All right, my little art friends, today we're going to take a look at the Middle Ages. It happened after Rome. Remember, we studied Greek and Roman art, and then after the fall of Rome until the Renaissance, which will be the next thing we're going to study. Hey, the first thing you need to know about the Middle Ages is it's broken down into three parts. So we're going to talk about those three parts: Byzantine, Romanesque, and Gothic. But first, remember we were talking about Polykleitos and how he made that whole set of rule of canon, he called it, which was like how to make the ideal looking guy and the right proportions and everything? Well, forget that, because the Middle Ages, they just lost their minds. They don't know what happened with proportion or anything. It all disappeared. And you know what that means? That means they made a lot of man babies. All right, look at this. Is like little baby Jesus, but he doesn't look like a baby. He looks like a little man baby. Here's another one right here, another man baby. Look, I'm telling you, they made a lot of man babies. Look at all these man babies they did. They didn't really know about proportions, so they made a lot of man babies. Okay, let's look at those three parts of the Middle Ages. First, Byzantine. Most important in Byzantine art is probably the fact that they made mosaics. Now, a mosaic is like when you take a bunch of little rocks and you put them together and you make the picture out of it. So they're all like glued down. And probably one of the most famous mosaics is this one, Justinian and the Tenants. Now look, this stuff was all pretty flat, pretty symmetrical, and it kind of looked like they're just floating there, like they're pinned to that. But that's kind of what mosaics were. And that's what's the most important things about the Byzantine. We're going to go through this so quick, we're going to move right on to Romanesque. Now, Romanesque was in the middle of the Middle Ages. And the Roman Church the Catholic Church was established, so they had to make churches, right? So they borrowed all these elements from, the Roman time, and that's why it's called Romanesque. Now, these churches were plain on the outside and really boxy. Like, they look like this. They kind of look like a cross. That's how they were set up. But they were boxy on the outside, but they were kind of cool on the inside. Then what happened next was we got to the third period, Gothic, and that's when they got really cool churches going on because they invented two things. They had these vaulted ceilings, and they have this thing called the flying buttress. Flying buttress is cool because it has the word buttress in it, and that's funny. Now, this is what it is. You got your building right here, and then you got your buttress right here, which could go up against the wall to hold up the wall. But better than that, they put these things in the middle that attach to it, and that's why they call them flying buttresses, because they're freestanding buttresses. Does that make any sense? It doesn't have to. Look at this. It's a church. You might even recognize it, but look at these flying buttresses right there. Then this church burnt down, and that was sad. The other thing they did during the Gothic period was they started making stained glass windows, because they could make these big windows because of this architecture stuff that they were doing, as opposed to those boxy churches back in the Romanesque. So they could make these cool stained glass windows. That one's definitely from the Gothic period. This one's probably not from the Gothic period. I pity the fool. This one's definitely not from the Gothic period. But you can make stained glass windows out of pretty much anything. Check it out. So that's your Middle Ages, like a really quick tour. We talked about Byzantine, Romanesque, and Gothic. We talked about the mosaics, like the Justinian and the Tenants one that was made during the Byzantine period. And we talked about the important things like flying buttresses, because buttress is a funny word to say, and stained glass windows that happen in the Gothic period. All right, that's Rome. That's your whole Middle Ages thing in a nutshell.